Parents want to keep it away from their children. Olympia is deciding a new law right now to keep pornography from getting to minors. But will the law go too far? Some of Seattle's top bands are afraid their music will be silenced. And others say it's censorship. The battle lines are drawn. Protecting your children or trampling your rights? Tonight on Town Meeting.
Welcome to Town Meeting. Now, here it is. This may be too simple an explanation of the Harmful to Minors Act, but it does tend to sum it up. Keeping pornography out of the hands of kids. What's created the controversy and the concern is who defines what pornography is, what is sexually explicit. Some people worry it'll cover everything: music, movies, books, rock concerts, cable TV, magazines, even the computer internet. Now, those in favor of the bill say people who worry about all of that are needlessly worrying too much. The former bass player for the group Nirvana, you're one of those that worries about it. What are you worried about?
I'm worried about it because I don't advocate child pornography or exposing children to pornography. I'm very much against it. And I'm not talking about like bestiality or bondage or anything. I'm talking about music. And
how do you think that this is going to impact music? What is directed at your concern?
It's going to impact music where I have to when I walk into a music store and buy a CD, I have to walk into the adults only section and feel guilty or uncomfortable that I'm doing something like that's morally wrong. And it just seems like the government's legislating morality. And there's all this rhetoric about like the contract with Washington State, the contract with America about less regulation and less government. And here we have regulation here, and we have regulating parenthood. But then again, we don't have, I haven't heard anything about child care or anything. What it is, it's regulating morality.
Who likes the idea of this bill? Who thinks it is something necessary and something that we need? Come here. What is it that appeals to this, to you about this?
Well, I think the fact that, children need to be educated. And I think that if you're going to bring this out into the open, I think that you need to let kids know, and it needs to be segregated. It needs to be, and let the parents decide, what's right for the kids.
So you think the parents need the help?
Yeah, I do.
This bill does it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. The deal is this. In addition to Krist Novoselic, who is with Nirvana, we have members of Soundgarden here. We have record company representatives. We have concert promoters. We're going to be hearing from the group Alice in Chains. One from John Corbett, one of the stars of the hit series Northern Exposure. We also have parents. We have parents who are deeply concerned about everything that their children are being exposed to, and parents who genuinely fear the implications of what they see as oppressive censorship. Now, to help sort all of this out, we have Barbara Doherty, who heads up the Washington State Coalition Against Censorship and who doesn't like the measure, and State Senator Pam Roach, who favors the Harmful to Minors Act. Pam, let me begin with you. Exactly, if you can, what's the intent of this?
Well, the intent of the bill is clearly to stop child pornography and being something that is the pornography being used to lure children into a situation or groomed for any kind of sexual activity by an adult or other person who would want to misuse a child.
So when you listen to a Krist Novoselic, do you see any relationship between what he's worried about and what you're intending to do?
Well, actually, I have to admit to not having listened to that very recently. What we're talking about is establishing the kind of standard that will protect children, at the same time protect the constitutional rights that we've been given in our First Amendment. I think it's very important for everyone to realize that lawmakers are very concerned about protecting First Amendment rights. And so when we passed this bill last year, and there were only 13 dissenting votes in 147 legislators, it was heard in committee hearings in the House and in the Senate. It was debated on the floor, and yet you still had so many people wanting this bill.
It did pass the legislature overwhelmingly last year. The
did.
governor vetoed it. It's back again for some compromise languaging, but essentially it's going to remain intact.
The bill essentially is going to be intact. It has been reintroduced in the Senate by the chair of the Law and Justice Committee, Senator Adam Smith.
All right, let me flip over to Barbara. Excuse me just a moment. with everything that Pam has just said, what are your concerns about the bill?
My concerns, our concerns, are that it goes so much further than anything that she's actually talked about. This bill imposes a new definition of materials that are currently non-obscene and widely available, that are supposedly judged to be harmful to minors if persons under 18 are permitted to see them. And it would be a gross misdemeanor for an adult to allow a minor to see any of this material that would fall under this legislation. Allow a child to see any of this material, it would be a gross misdemeanor.
Well, I think that that's rather misconstruing what the bill does, and so why don't I try to explain a little bit, because we haven't talked about what it means, harmful to minors, and how the bill does define it. First of all, you'd have to three-prong test, and everything would have to meet the three-prong test. Each of the three prongs, which I'll describe, have to apply to what it is we're going to be usually seeing.
Okay, give me those.
One is that it has to, that normal adults, regular adults in society, a community representation would have to say, yes, this material is something that allures to the prurient interests of the minor. Secondly, that it has sexually or otherwise very explicit material. And the bill defines that in very graphic terms.
Right.
Different sexual and violent type situations. The third is that it must have redeeming value, either for political, literature, scientific material that would be relative, that there must be something in the material that is of literary value, political value, social value, scientific value for minors.
I'd like to respond to that because I think that's up to individuals. I'm a bookseller. I work in a bookstore, and we have a number.
Doesn't affect you. It won't affect you.
We have a number of materials on display all the time which fall under this. You say that sexually explicit nudity means the showing of the female breast with less than half or full opaque covering. If a child picks this up off the shelf, we have no control over what they're looking at. This may be a book that we want them to see.
So you would not be, I presume, showing the child any books or material on purpose, taking it to the child and showing it to them.
It doesn't require that they show it to them on purpose.
And I must say that you have to understand that parents are very involved in this whole situation. The bill clearly states that if the parent gives permission or is there and present and gives permission, either written or there present, or if the person in your case tries to find out how old a child is, and before they come through the door of the bookstore?
Do we begin to see where people's concerns are coming from? Because I think we need to take this in increments.
I think the issue here is how crude and rude does the material get? You have to understand what the lawmakers are trying to get at. We're trying to get at individuals who use sexually explicit material that meets the three prongs to lure children in to sexual activity.
So this
program has many times talked about child sexual abuse and the necessity to get tough on people.
Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
We're giving
everything we know about child molester sexual offenders does not indicate that they would be particularly deterred at all by a relatively minor and probably to them obscure law, which says you can't show certain kinds of material to a child. And besides which, almost all of the child molestation incidents that we know of in society take place in the home without any
where they are groomed.
Hold on. I'm the father of two boys, 9 and 12. I deeply resent, and I'm proud to be a citizen in a free country, I deeply resent someone telling me what my children may listen to, what is good music, what is bad music.
No one is telling
People
you that.
did that with literature, and some of the greatest novels of the century were banned for being obscene, and I'm talking James Joyce Ulysses. And that's exactly the kind of misuse. Now, your intentions may be wonderful, and I respect your opinion, but you have no right to foist your opinion on me. I have a different opinion.
Have you read the bill?
Don't force me.
Have you read the bill? You've read the bill. Then you did read the part.
Why do you want to force your opinion on me?
You did read the part about parents, where as a parent, you can show this material if you have reason to your 8- and 9-year-old son.
This is not true.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe that.
Look,
I don't believe that for a minute.
It's not what the bill says.
It's exactly what the bill says.
I'll tell you what. We got a deputy prosecuting attorney here from Pierce County, Christine Quinn Brintnall. Let me come to you. And here's how this works, if we can leap ahead and try to bring some sense to this. If the law passes, and I'm a parent who objects to to something that I think is sexually explicit or appeals to the prurient interest of a child, I come to you as a prosecutor, file a complaint, you decide what?
Well, a couple of things. For one thing, we have a statute just like this that uses a standard for adults right now. So all this statute really does is say we're going to have a different standards for kids. What we do is we go out and we purchase the material, and then we look at the material, and we determine whether it appeals to a prurient interest in
If you think
sex.
I'm right, you file charges.
Yeah, but prurient interest means shameful or morbid. It doesn't mean a normal, healthy interest in sex. It does not mean a nude body. It means shameful or morbid, bestiality, and the other things that are mentioned in the
All right, then let's...
If it doesn't mean nudity, why do you so specifically talk in the initiative about nudity, an uncovered breast?
Hold on. If we can, let's address some of the specific language of the bill. It does address nudity, or the caressing of parts of the body that remain closed. That's mentioned in there. What does this do that isn't already done by current legislation?
You know, first of all, we're dealing with minors, and there are age-appropriate types of things. You don't let a 9-year-old drive a car. You don't let a 3-year-old shoot a gun. You don't let someone who is young become exposed to things that are really not at their maturational level. And I think that we're missing the point because we're talking about youth. We're talking about young people. And, sir, I must tell you that what happens is people that aren't as well motivated as I'm sure you are use the material to groom their victims.
Then bust them.
Oh.
We would like to do that, and that's why we'd like the law.
But what... All right, hold on. But his concerns, what does this law replace or support that isn't currently in statute?
This law is going to create the definition, which we've tried to get straight, where we will be able to give prosecutors...
We need to have some sort of a law in order to protect the children. Now, if we don't have anything on the books, it is impossible to try or convict anybody from doing a wrong thing. Now, I've got 2 girls at home, and I don't want them to fall victim because some idiot went out and stared at pictures or read some nasty stuff in order to feed their mind. And then I also have to believe that there are people, maybe nobody in this room, but there are people that do have a sensitivity level towards that stuff, so why feed that and cause them to turn into something they shouldn't?
So your concern is that people using material like this to groom your child for some level of... for sexual abuse.
Either groom a child or another person, or groom themselves for that kind of a mindset.
And how does this law fix that? And then, real quickly, Pam, and then Barbara, what you think it deviates from. How does it fix it?
The law very carefully defines what kind of material is sexually explicit and is prurient in the minds of the youth. And what we have then is a standard that prosecutors can use. Now, the material...
All right, I got that. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to...
Well, if you want to understand the whole context of the bill, it takes it to the prosecutor, and they all are supporting this in the state of Washington. Everyone that's testified in Olympia on the bill, that's been a prosecutor, has been in favor of the bill. Then, if the prosecutor thinks that the standard has been met, it goes to trial, and guess what? 12 people make the decision. 12 people that have been supposedly, randomly selected off voter registration rolls. You and me and others that have a variety of different types of opinions. You have just as much opportunity to be in one of those juries as someone who might think the way I do.
Well, when we come back, I want to hear from Barbara. I want to give you the opportunity to more adequately express what your concerns are. And let's quit talking around this. Let's look at some examples of what might potentially be affected by this bill. Hear more from the folks in the audience. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Talking about the Harmful to Minors Act. Barbara, we left you off in mid-stride there in response to what Pam was talking about why this bill was necessary.
There is so much that needs to be said in so little time to say it. Even with regard to the so-called parental exemption, what this bill says is that it will be an affirmative defense. That means you can say, well, I did it because I'm the parent. If you have done it and you can prove you have done it for a bona fide reason. So it isn't even true. Yes, charges could be brought against parents under this legislation. And they would have to go to court and prove to a judge and a jury somewhere that their purpose was, quote, bona fide for showing this information to their children. That's one thing. If indeed what the bill is after is obviously what most people think of as hardcore material, then why does the bill repeatedly list, it says all matter. It lists music. You think that music is used by pedophiles to groom children? If you don't, what's it doing in there? It says...
All right. All right. Hold on, Bart, because I want to give Pam the opportunity. I don't want to talk in generalities, and you wanted some specific areas of the bill that you wanted to cover. If there was languaging that you wanted to specifically address, is that it, Pam?
I got the bill during the break so that your audience would understand a few things, because there's an awful lot of misunderstanding. It took my getting the bill for my debate opponent here to up with the fact that, yes, parents do have a say in whether or not their children can see the material, which, in fact, they can. It is an affirmative defense, and you said that in your statements, exactly what the bill says.
But what is it about the bill that you wanted to address? The languaging.
We have children in this state who are sexually abused by a number of people. They could be it could be their parents, it could be their neighbors, their babysitter, their wherever they go to preschool or whatever. We as legislators want to get to the bottom of that. And the purpose of this bill, and you asked, makes you very nervous when I try to explain this.
It doesn't make me nervous. What I want to do is move this to what you think it will accomplish.
It's going to help prosecutors put those people behind bars. It's going to prevent some crimes from actually happening, because grooming children for sexual acts,
Here, bear with me. I don't think there is a person here in the audience, myself included, who is going to take issue with the need to go after pedophiles and those who sexually abuse children. The issue is how this bill addresses that question. That's the crux of what we're talking about.
What the bill
But how does it do it? How does it do it?
I've just told you, I'll tell you again. It defines harmful to minors in a very specific way with a three-pronged approach. It's very difficult to have any material meet all three prongs. You can say a Madonna film, for instance, has artistic value. It's out of the question. If your music is good music, it's out of the question. If it meets, excuse me, let me finish. If it meets the three-pronged criteria, and that's very difficult to do, it will allow prosecutors, when adults and others are using this material to groom or get ready, in other words, to sexually
I don't want this to be adversarial. I'm not attempting to do that. Let's, here, just for the sake of everyone, let's take a look. You mentioned Madonna. Let's take a look at a Madonna clip and see if it fits the three-pronged criteria that you've asked about.
If you're showing it on your television, it probably does not.
All right, well, let's look at it anyway and see it. All right. It could obviously appeal to the prurient interest of a teenager.
What doesn't appeal to the prurient interest of a teenager?
Would that help me here? I'm sincere. Help me.
I think most prosecutors would look at that and say, no, it does not meet the three-pronged criteria.
Christine Quinn Brittenell,
can I say something, please?
Ask the prosecutor.
I have no doubt in my mind that if a jury, instructed by a judge as they are, to try to determine the answer to that question based on what this legislation says, there is no doubt in my mind, but that there would be a number of them who would definitely classify that material under this legislation as banned from persons under 18.
Would you, as a prosecutor, file charges against the promoters of a concert of that nature or against the artist performing in such a manner?
Based just on that clip?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Why not?
No. Well, because of the legal standard, it has to be a shameful or morbid interest in sex, not a normal, healthy interest in sex. And not all sex is shameful or morbid. We're really talking about bestiality, rape, torture, snuff films, that kind of thing.
Do you have any
You have to look at the whole thing. So the chances are that nobody's going to want to watch a video that would be that way from beginning to end. Now, if a pedophile takes clips and then shows them to a young girl saying, this is what I want you to do to me, see, it's okay, Madonna does
And you can
it.
prosecute the pedophile.
You can only prosecute the pedophile if the child goes along with it. If the child stops and says, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this, then we've got nothing we can go forward with a charge.
Okay. I'm clear on that
But
now.
let's get clear who could be jeopardized by this.
Okay, well...
Where did the so-called pedophile get the material? Because that's the persons who are going to be responsible for this.
That I think needs to be brought out is Ms. Roach said that there were all the prosecutors who testified against it
No,
for this law supported it, right?
They like the
that
bill.
lady over there is the only prosecutor that testified for the law during the hearings last
Well,
time in the Senate because I was there and I know.
Sir, I was there
One.
too, sir.
Two, your bill does not mention molesters or pedophiles. So if it's molesters and pedophiles that you're after, please write a bill that mentions them. That's what you really want to get besides this list of other things because sound recordings have no place. Sound recordings, popular music, as you defined it as a publication, you've also defined sound recordings in preference to a definition of live performance, and so therefore you can go after Madonna, and you will go after Madonna, and don't lie to me.
Why would you think... Why would you think she's trying to lie to you? Why would she be sandbagging
Because
you?
censors always do their work in the dark, and what
Why
has
do you
gone
think
on
she's
so far,
censoring?
what has gone on so far in this legislative session is this is just one of the proposals that's out there. There's another bill from the House which excludes exemptions for librarians, museums, and educational institutions, and the governor, in an effort to avoid a veto override, has offered language throughout the Senate and the House that he will find acceptable and will not override if they adopt his language.
It is really scary when our U.S. officials become art critics. That is really frightening. I mean, what is this three-pronged so-called criteria?
Look, let's take... I don't understand why there's such an unwillingness to take this at the issue as it's presented. That this is a means of targeting those who would, in turn, sexually target children. Why do you have difficulty assessing it in that way?
I have a tremendous amount of difficulty with censors in general, and as he said earlier before, they do most of their work in the dark.
No one,
Everything that you've said...
Excuse me, you said censor, but you see no one is in all saying that none of this material, that any of this material can be censored. No one is saying that it can't be made, produced, sold. We're just saying that children shouldn't have to be exposed to it, but we've even given exceptions to when that... I'd like to ask Barbara, I'm hoping that you'll acknowledge that there is a problem of sexual abuse with our children in this state, and if you can acknowledge that, how would you like to get to the individual who is grooming for sexual purposes? Do you have an acceptable alternative in mind?
I could probably come up with some suggestions, but
Well,
I'm
let's
not
just
sure
come
it
down
would
and give
matter.
it to-
Because if what you're proposing is useless and won't work, why should I have to come up with something that I think might work?
May I point out to your audience at large?
I would hate... Is this boiling down... Because this is beyond semantics. I mean, your concerns and the concerns of those who are opposed to this expressed here are targeting the language.
That's what a law is, Ken,
Okay.
the language. That's what it is.
Yeah, let me go back. Before, in 1994, when the law was passed, we had an extremely liberal state legislature, particularly the House of Representatives, and I think most people would agree to that was a fact. And yet they voted for the bill. Only 13 dissenting votes out of all of the legislators who I know are interested in protecting the First Amendment rights, and yet at the same time getting at abusers and those that would abuse. And I think we have a very well-worked bill, one that I believe will pass the legislature again this year.
And if
we'll
the governor vetoes it, there's enough votes, you believe, to override the veto.
There was almost a veto override this year. And the only reason there wasn't, quite frankly, is that the Democratic Party in the Senate did not want to embarrass the sitting governor with a veto override.
All right, I know you've had your hand raised. I promise I'll get to you when we come back. Let's broaden this out, because this is more than music and concerts and CDs and albums. There are those who question whether this bill could isolate Washington State from cable TV programs, from video movie releases. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk to John Corbett from Northern Exposure when we come back. Stay with us, we'll return. Welcome back to Coming. So, your thoughts on this bill is what?
I'm suddenly realizing how much of a parenting issue this is. And Parents' job is to recognize moral absolutes. And we all have a compass. And we know what is right and what is wrong. There are a few that don't. And I think this bill addresses those few. And it gives support to the parents. And this is what we need.
I just wanted to say I think that what we're talking about here is censorship, about our freedom to choose what we decide to do. We already have laws against rapists and murderers. I don't see how this law is going to make any kind of another big issue or difference. I really do believe that it begins in the home, that it's very important for your family to teach you what's right and what's wrong. And let's face it, it's a big world out there, and you're all going to go out there on your own, and you're all going to figure out what's right and wrong for yourself. You know, and this Madonna thing, I mean, we see that on soap operas every day. So, you know, it's like...
Do you worry about what the implications of this bill represent?
It's not going to affect me in any way, because I'm over 18. I can make that decision what I want to listen to. I've been listening to music, rock and roll music, since I was 3 years old, and I'm okay. I'm not a murderer. You know, I'm not out molesting little children. I think we all need to make that decision for ourselves.
Okay. This does... I do want to move it beyond the music. Go ahead.
The thing that I find being obscene and dysfunctional, especially within our U.S. government, coming in and dictating, I mean, this is such an age-old problem. I mean, when Elvis was shaking his pelvis and doing his thing, people were yelling and raising up that, you know, that this was something that was going to inspire our youth to riot in the streets and create unthinkable sins. And the idea of the U.S. government thinking that music is going to inspire pedophilia or child molestation.
But that's not what...
Absurd. No, that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. That is exactly what it says. This is not an issue. Everybody here, I don't think anyone here agrees with the idea of molestation or child pedophilia. It's just...
Let me get John Corbett, stand up here with me.
Yeah, and everybody else, please stand up so we can see who's talking, you know, just like the big boys can. I'm here to lend my support because I'm new to this censorship legislation. No matter what you want to call it, that's what it is.
Have you read it, John?
Because like a lot of people, I sat home watching this on TV thinking, hey, you know, I'm busy. I don't have time to get involved and to write my congressman and to bombard people like her with my faxes and to make them take notice. And so I'm here to lend my support for that. But it does affect me because I happen to be a club owner here in Seattle for live music venue, and I'm wondering how this is going to affect my business when bands who have the word masturbation in their song can not play at my club because of legislation saying that's obscene and illegal.
Pam?
Do you have a bar at your club, John?
Yes, I do.
Then I don't think it's anything but a moot point for you.
Well, how about when you put a ban on performers and say that they are not allowed to play in the state of Washington because of this legislation? That kills my business. I can't.
What about at all agents then?
Nobody's doing that.
Not now. They're not doing it now. But what about in 3 years?
No, I can only tell you that we've just looked at a spot there from Madonna. You've had me say that I certainly wouldn't say that it would meet the three-pronged test. You had a prosecutor who's been prosecuting these cases for 16 years who said that taking that clip, that would not meet the test. What is happening here is a lot of hype is being done, but we're not looking at the intent and the content of the underlying bill, which 95% of all of the legislators voted for.
Can I say something about the history of this legislation? Telling us how many people voted for it in Olympia last year because, quite frankly, of political cowardice has nothing to do with anything. This is the same legislation, the same harmful to minors legislation that the citizens of Washington State have rejected 3 times.
It's not.
It is. I've been doing this job for 10 years. This is the same legislation proposed by the same person that the citizens rejected 3 times in the form of an initiative, not even giving it enough signatures to go on the ballot. This is the same law. I feel like I'm talking about something out there that's, you know, amorphous. It's not. I wish you would all
There are other areas that this potentially could impact, according to how you interpret. Here's a clip from a soap opera that airs right here on ABC, Channel 4, one of those daytime dramas. Well, whatever it is, you can call it whatever you want. But let's take a look at this and see if this somehow fits the criteria of what we're talking about. All right, so talk to me about images on television then. Cable TV, broadcast television. Is there any implication to that type of activity and the bill that we're talking about?
I don't, again, see anything in that clip that would have caused the prosecutor to move forward.
Would you have?
Based just on that
Just on that clip?
No.
Nothing there?
No. Well, the third requirement, other than shameful or morbid as opposed to healthy, is that in the context in which it is used. And so you have to look at the context. That's why I say if you take that clip and a pedophile uses it to groom, that's one thing. But if it's in the context of a whole story, then that's quite a different matter. Also, I want to say about the bill that it's not censorship, in the sense that it does not...
Washington Coalition Against Censorship has been against it for 8 years?
It does not seek to limit the artistic expression in any way, shape, or form. It only says you can't get paid for it by minors. That's all it does. It's a commercial
Is there
issue.
clarity here if I say, are you afraid of what the bill does or what you think it can be used to do? Is there a distinction?
And when you write a law, you have to be careful that you're saying exactly what you mean, because unknown persons, juries, judges, are going to be asked to apply the language that you use in the law.
Go ahead.
Mr. Roach, I had a question for you. It seems that the whole crux of your position is that you want to stop pedophiles and other people who are going to use material such as this to groom children for sexual abuse. Am I correct in this?
That's one of the reasons.
Okay, that's one of the reasons. Okay. It's, to my knowledge, the majority of child sexual abuse cases occur in that child's own home. Is that true?
I would say, from my knowledge, that most would occur in homes.
Okay, and then you said at the same time, in this legislation, there are parental exemptions, are there not?
You have to understand that if the parent is going to use it to groom children...
Oh, but you don't understand what I'm saying.
No,
you're saying you're trying to target pedophiles. Through this legislation, how are you going to target pedophiles when in actuality, you were saying it's okay for that parent to take this material if they deem it necessary and show it to this child, right?
It depends. If the parent...
hold on. Give her the opportunity to answer the one question.
If the parent is using the material for a bona fide reason, then there's no problem with the parent showing the children the material.
Okay.
The parent's judgment, whether or not it's
I would
bona fide
say
reason or not,
a
right?
reason that certainly would not be bona fide would be to lure them into sexual activity.
But what I'm trying to say is, how are you going to target the pedophiles when the people who are committing the crime are...
Actually, we'd like to get at people before they become pedophiles.
Okay.
Because
now we're back to the assumption. Please, yes.
All right, look, there are other... I think we need to refocus the conversation and deal with what specifically the objecting concerns are and what the purpose and intent of the bill is.
Yeah.
And let me take a break, Pam, because I do want to regroup here and see if there can be an understanding of what the opposition is here. Everyone agrees pedophiles need to be dealt with, that sexually explicit material in and of itself should be kept from the hands, out of the hands of children. How does this do that, and why are you objecting to it if that's the best approach? We'll talk about it all when we come back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Go ahead.
Hi, Ken. I'm well past 18. I'm an adult, and I just want to show a small example of censorship and how it affects me. I bought the CD by the Lemonheads last year for the song "My Drug Buddy." On the on the listing right here, it's just called "Buddy." The offensive word "drug" is deleted. Is this an example of what adults are going to...
Why do you think it is an example, or why would you think it's an example?
I believe this is ostensibly an attempt to protect kids from the four-letter word "drug." But I'm an adult. I bought this for the song. The song "My Drug Buddy" is a work of art. It is not represented as such on the label here.
Let me get Christine Quinn Brittenall up here. Let's see if we can, in a microcosm-type fashion, explain this away. So tell this young man why his concerns are unfounded, or do you think they are?
Well, first of all, I don't know whether they are or not. No government agency did anything to that.
No.
And if something was done, it wasn't done for artistic reasons. It was done for commercial reasons. They wanted to be able to make money, and so maybe they wanted to be able to make money off of teenagers. But that's why they did that.
I don't know if it's the band or the record company or what, but
is the song still the same?
The song is still the same inside here, but it it pisses me off that it's misrepresented on the label.
It upsets you.
It upsets me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, another four-letter word.
Now we find ourselves getting to the issue of the chilling effect that this kind of legislation and this kind of thinking in society in general, which seems to be a huge trend at the moment, the kind of feeling that creates. A bookseller is actually worried.
Barbara, is that your ultimate concern, is a chilling effect on publishers and artists and musicians?
No, it's only part of our concern.
Yeah, but the chilling effect is not on the artistic expression. I think I established that. The song is the same. The chilling effect is on the commercialization of it. It's on the sale of it.
You know, we're hearing...
Okay. Let's, one more time. Here are some excerpts from mainstream magazines. These are fashion magazines or whatever. But let's take a quick look at what is contained advertisement-wise within our magazine. Okay, I'm sorry. Obsession for Men. Since that's the one we wound up on, talk to me about that. If someone comes to you as a parent, if I come and file a complaint or charge citing that particular advertisement as having undue sexual overtones and it's appealing to the prurient nature of a child, are you going to consider filing charges?
I don't see anything in that ad that appeals to a shameful or a morbid interest in sex.
Okay, if the prosecuting attorney, if I go to the prosecuting attorney in Kitsap County or Thurston County, are they always going to agree with your interpretation?
Well, for one thing, one of the reasons people have said, why do you have breasts? Why do you have all these specifics in the statute? Well, we have all the specifics in the statute. None of them are showing.
Oh, hold on. Let me get to you with the mic. Hold on. Stand up here.
Okay, in the true ad, first off, they censored this ad. I mean, the true ad shows her buttocks. If her buttocks was exposed, would you prosecute against that? If it showed?
She said no.
So if you see a fashion magazine and a woman's breasts are exposed, it says in the legislation that you would. I mean,
no, it has to meet all three prongs, and your audience is missing the fact
let's be specific. Let's take a full body nude. Let's take a full body nude.
Like Michelangelo's work?
Well, yeah, like Michelangelo's work, and let's apply it.
We like it. It's nice.
Okay,
nice
great. You like it, but does that mean that
it does not meet the third prong? It has artistic value.
Your idea of artistic value?
No, not. It is not her idea of artistic value.
Whose idea of artistic value is it?
The community at large would think that is artistic. The community
didn't write this legislation. In fact, the community has
did
voiced their opinion many times to overturn this legislation.
The community did write this
legislation. All right, here, come here.
The community and your representatives voted for the legislation because they're trying to protect children at the same time protecting the First Amendment right.
Go ahead.
Let me just remind you that was the amendment of this legislation has been around for almost 8 years, and it has not passed through Olympia until recently.
Really quick, it just seems like Ms. Roach is talking about a totally different bill, and these people in the audience here are talking about another bill.
Which bill do you
Well, no, the way I see it is I'm actually supporting Ms. Roach. I came here against her, but now I see that it's not a big brother bill. It's not going to be banning Nirvana's music. It's not going to be banning Madonna videos. What it's going to go after, I hope, is the hustler movies, the snuff films, as you mentioned. That's the stuff that really is detrimental.
At what point did you find yourself convinced to take a position opposite of the one that you came here with? What did Pam Roach say that convinced you that you should support this instead of fight it?
The fact that the material needs to be used by pedophilics in order to persuade children to do illegal acts.
This legislation does not demand that the material be used by a pedophile. Nowhere.
Barbara,
this is not true.
Barbara,
all right, the bottom line, bear with me, hold on. The bottom line here, and this is what we will talk about when we come back. Thank you. What we will talk about here is what are the safeguards? Are there any safeguards against this bill being used in a frivolous or harassing manner? That seems to be the thing here, is that who's going to target what based on what criteria, and is this going to have to wind up in court every time charges are filed? We'll talk about it when we come back. Stay with us. staying with us. Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing that I don't think has been brought up enough is that in the legislation, really, it is so incredibly broad. It's not as specific as you would say it is. You know, I don't know if I want to have any kind of art that I would release to have to be, you know, scrutinized under any kind of prong system or whatever. But it's not really what your intention is. It's what it gives you the power to do, which is, according to what I've read here, censor and or I guess restrict virtually almost anything you would want to. I mean, it is so broad, it's so incredibly broad, non-specific, that, you know, whether your intent is to censor something or whether your intent is to restrict something like a picture with a girl's butt showing, you may not want to, but somebody may do that, and it actually does give you the power to do things that...
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with that.
And decipher, if you can, or speak to that concern.
Well,
Speak.
I think actually the bill is very tightly written, very carefully written. And if I can finish, you kind of have to ask yourself what adult individual would want to show a 3-year-old something more explicit that was on the screen. You have to understand that we're talking about showing material to minors. We're not talking about, and we're talking about allowing minors to buy material such as this. And do we really want 9-year-olds going out and buying extremely explicit material?
What if a parent objects to what's on MTV or what is on...
I guess they don't turn it on. They don't buy it.
But is there an
they
avenue?
monitor their
Is
children.
there an avenue for that parent to file a complaint then with
No.
a state prosecutor?
You know,
can this be used as a harassment tool? Can it be used to kind of keep programming in books and movies and
parents
musicians?
take responsibility for what comes into their homes. They can buy boxes for the back of their televisions to prevent certain channels from coming in. I think responsible parents do that now. Responsible parents who themselves might want to see X-rated movies take them out of the VCR so that
and your
when they see
concern
them
is
on...
that that's all written into the bill, Barbara? Help me here. Is that what...
This bill applies, and it says it does, to all matter and live performances. I don't think you could get any broader than that. And
again, the matter has to meet the 3-pronged test. It also has to... I'm sorry, but
that is a
people have
legal
worked-
standard?
It's a legal standard.
But it is also a subjective standard that can be decided in a number of ways by a number of people, and the prosecutor that you happen to be speaking with is a person, a prosecutor who has been supportive of this legislation for quite some time.
As have many other prosecutors.
What other prosecutors might do with the power that this gives them.
The 3-pronged test has held up in court, is established in many other states in the Union. The fact of the matter is that we need to do something to protect children from those that are moving forward.
Can I say something, please?
Hold on.
The 3-pronged...
What no one's talking about here is that there's a couple of motives here that I'll be really tight with. Your motives are, first off, and there's a governmental motive here that's angering. It's about the business of government. First off, I'm horrified that you as an American want to even talk about this topic. It's been ground over and it's slowing up the wheels.
Abuse?
It is
You don't think we should talk about child sexual abuse?
No, you're bringing it down to that issue. It's not just that. There are so many laws in effect, and this stuff has been going on for years, and it's a concern with parents. There's another governmental issue. First off, most elected officials do not read all of the bills that they are voting on too often. That's number one.
Sam, you've read the bill.
I know that. No, she might have read the bill, and I'm not going to tell me that all the legislators voted for it is a meaningless thing, and most Americans should understand these guys don't read the bills. There's another point. You have a motive. The prosecutor has a motive. This creates more business for government people to be involved in. It creates more drain of our tax dollars, more distraction from the real issues of keeping the world afloat and helping people.
I'll tell you what. When you come, we'll take a deep breath.
Okay.
Form some thoughts, and we'll talk about it. Get a response when we come back. Stay with us. Response to the gentleman.
Real short. We've got enough work. All this does is said that there's a different standard for minors than adults. We already have a standard for adults in this state.
Can I add something to that? The idea that this is an established procedure in law, that these 3 prongs for minors, is simply not true. There is no, I know no prosecutions that have, effective, I know of some that have been disastrous, like police storming into art galleries and taking off photographs of a well-known photographer's work, of nudes of her family.
Look, with the amount of time we have left, first of all, I'll get a comment from you, but with the amount of time we have left, what address the concerns as expressed by Pam Roach as to what the intent of the bill is and how those concerns can be met and your concerns be dealt with? Is there a way with this bill?
With this bill?
Yes.
No.
That's succinct. That brings us right to the point. Go ahead, and then Pam, I want to come back to you.
The matter is, the only way that you're going to prevent pedophilia and things of that nature is to raise your children right. And there is no form of legislation that you can instill and give to us, the American people, that is going to do that. I mean, there are already laws that say, we'll take you to jail if you're a pedophile. We'll take you to jail if you do bestiality. So the only way that you can do it is to raise your kids right. And you can't come up with a law that's going to allow that.
Yeah, I work at a Christian bookstore, and I just wanted to say that there are choices out there. Parents don't realize that there are other choices. There are other forms of music. If their parents don't like something that Nirvana does, no offense, you know, but if they don't like something that they do, they can simply not buy that CD for their child and take them to a Christian bookstore, buy something that they want them to buy.
Pam, what's the end result here? What do you think is likely? What is likely going to happen with this measure?
I predict that the bill will pass the Senate, go to the House, where it will also pass, and it will be again on the governor's desk. One last thought. Remember that even if it gets past the prosecutor and moved on, we have a jury trial on these issues. Yeah, this is the way we do things in this country. We have jury trials. So, you know, there's a lot of ways here. It would be very, very difficult for something to actually...
Please join me in thanking Barbara Doherty, Pam Roach, all of the people who contributed here this evening. This is a complicated, emotional issue. Read up on it, know what you want. Now, as the American Broadcasting Company proudly notes, more people get their news from ABC News than any other source. We got Peter Jennings next week. Call us for tickets, 443-4186. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Have a good night.
ABC News and KOMO News 4